Hi everyone, my name is Fiona and I am here to share with you um, some ideas around the hero's journey and how Rahu and Ketu interplay with that hero's journey. And this came about when I was doing the Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship program. When we studied Rahu and Ketu, I was lucky enough my essay topic was around Rahu and Ketu in the 6th and the 12th house. And it inspired me to comment in my essay about how that supported the hero's journey and messed with the hero's journey. And from that essay has come this presentation. So let's get started. We're going to be looking at the hero's journey, giving you a bit of an overview of that, and also then we will look at how Rahu and Ketu are different to the hero's journey, and we're going to go through each house or sign combination, and then we're going to look at some themes that are common depending on the placements and try and bring those together. And in a way, overall, we're looking to where we need to be awake to Rahu and Ketu as astrologers and not give people spiritual cliches or platitudes. So that's going to be a theme throughout. So let's just jump right in here to the hero's journey. And this is a monomyth that's been recognized through different cultures, through anthropologists and researchers, that throughout the world, humans are telling each other this kind of adventure story. And over the last 100 years, that has been brought together in something we call the hero journey. And if you pop online, you're probably going to see this picture, the white box picture here of a hero going on an adventure, that there's a call to an unknown quest, a hero that probably doesn't feel worthy and doesn't realize what he's capable of, goes on an adventure that's bigger than he can conceptualize, that can be mystical and magical, that has some kind of ordeal for him to survive or to conquer, but through that ordeal he's actually transformed. His understanding of the world or what's important is transformed, and he comes back to his village with this new knowledge that might be from a different realm, and he lives among his peers but has changed entirely from this quest. So it's got these known and unknown parts, and it's got this transformative nature, and this idea that what you thought you were on the quest for and what you actually got from the quest are often different things, because the goal changes during the quest. And if you're going to pop online, I've put in there the Wikipedia entry, just lists all of that history of how that was put together. But another great resource on the internet is this amazing infographic taking some mega blockbusters, these epic stories or sagas that we've grown up with, and walking them through the hero journey. So you can see here the ordinary world, the call to adventure, the refusal of the call. Like, it goes through each of these. It's quite funny, and it really simplifies the complexity of all of these adventure stories into what we call the hero journey. So that's an introduction to the idea of the hero journey. Let's have a look at it a little bit more detail, linking it with astrology. Okay, so continuing the hero's journey, when we were talking just before about that infographic that had kind of this colorful sliding snake down the screen, linking these mega sagas and their 12 key steps, they're all kind of built on the hero's journey, but particularly influenced by the 12 steps that we're going to articulate here from a guy named Christopher Vogler, and he wrote a book. And here are the stages that you might see in movies, but that we could delineate for the hero's journey. That there's a departure from the ordinary world, a call to adventure, a refusal of the call where the hero doesn't feel he's big enough or capable enough, perhaps a meeting with a mentor, and crossing some threshold from the original village to officially taking on this quest and deciding to be big enough, bold enough to go do this quest. And then there's an initiation into a new world. There are tests, allies, and enemies. There's approach to an innermost cave, and then there's an ordeal where a transformative experience takes place for the hero and he gains the reward. Then there's a return to his original life, bringing back, trying to take this transformation and turn it back into everyday life. It's like that quote of, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. How do you integrate these learnings back into your normal everyday reality? Can involve the resurrection and returning with the elixir to the village or the community, the country, whatever this quest has saved and brought for his community. Okay, so these 12 steps, I can't help but notice, have some real similarities to the numerology that's there in the zodiac. And this takes me right back to the first class when I started this apprenticeship, listening to the numerology of the zodiac. I couldn't help but make the connection to this story. So on the other side of the screen now, I'm going to try to show you where it sort of lines up and doesn't line up. And, you may have your own way that you would tweak these 12 steps in this Hollywood script version of the hero's journey into the houses or the signs. So have a look at my version and we can discuss. So from looking at it from an astrology point of view, it's not necessarily departure, but it's entering into the material world. That is the incarnation moment. I think that that story of that you would normally start with the book or the movie where you set the scene, I don't think we really get that necessarily in the astrology. That's all in a previous lifetime. But the call to adventure we definitely get in those first numbers of the zodiac, those first houses or signs. We get something in the first about the life path, about gathering resources and gaining skills and exploring. So this is all part of that call to adventure. Then there's a refusal of the call and a meeting with a mentor. To me, those two together speak about that fourth energy of home, of consolidating, of inner contentment, of the mother. And then crossing the first threshold lines up nicely with the fifth house, with Leo, with this energy of setting out on one's own path. Being creative, like what is it that you are going to contribute to this world? What are you going to create? What are you leaving behind? It's you stepping out strongly to create your own kingdom. And then we've got the tests, allies, and enemies. What a great way of summing up the sixth house, right? So I put there same, but of course we also have that sixth house or Virgo energy around perfecting something of value, really applying yourself to perfecting something material. And then initiation, I'm putting here into what is beyond matter. So same theme as the 12 steps from the hero's journey, but bringing that matter theme into it as well. Seventh house or seventh sign, all about trade and transforming matter from one form to another. 8, the ordeal, same great description of the 8th house in Scorpio. Reward, same. We get that wisdom of Sagittarius of the ninth, that trinal house. And then return is the wording from the Hollywood book, but perhaps a better way of describing astrology is bringing that non-material into matter, into the material world. So 10, the road back, I think is a great description for Capricorn, and the 10th house, that hard work that the 10th house and Capricorn are, but from spiritual inspiration. So really having to put in that work for excellence, but with the context of the metaphysical that we've experienced through the ordeal. The 11th gains from the life work, and 12th release and transcend. So I hope that you can see how there's some similar directions and pacing in this hero's journey, mapping it onto the numerology that's there in the zodiac. Let's take it one step further and try to animate the hero's journey with astrology. So we've got the circle that we had from that original Wikipedia drawing. So we can think of this hero's journey starts with a call to adventure. There are trials and temptations. There's an abyss, death, rebirth, revelation. There's transformation, atonement, and return. So I'm overlaying here just a sketch of that hero's journey. And let's put that together with the zodiac path, the life path, gathering resources, exploring, gaining skills, consolidating, striking out on your own, perfecting matter, then trading matter, transformation, gaining wisdom, work for no reward, share wealth with others, and transcend. So here we again see the similarities between these two stories, the zodiac numerology and the hero's journey. And one of the things that jumps out straight away is this clockwise motion of both stories. You know, there's a direction that this story is going in. And both the zodiac and the hero's journey can lull us into believing that there is only one direction, and that this is the journey that we're all on, and therefore we should all be heading towards transcending. Right? That's kind of what this story, you know, that there's a beginning and an end, and it's going in one direction. And also, if you think about with this map here in the middle, if you think about the planets when you represent them in a South Indian chart, they're going to go round clockwise as well. But what is it that Rahu and Ketu do to this picture? Of course, they transit in the opposite direction. So when you're watching what happens with the planets through the year or years, and you watch what happens with Rahu and Ketu, they're the only things going in the other direction. And this is such a great insight into why Rahu and Ketu mess with our mythology of the hero's journey, because they actually come in there and turn things around in the opposite direction. So now let's look at how that impacts different houses and different signs. And a natural place to begin looking at Rahu and Ketu in action when we're talking about the hero's journey is Rahu in 12 and Ketu in 6. So that could either be Rahu in the 12th house and Ketu in the 6th house, and that would put Rahu in a moksha house and Ketu in an artha house or a hardworking house. And the other way would be if Rahu's in Pisces, a water sign, and Virgo has got Ketu, Virgo the earth sign. So when we have this placement, I think you'll hear the similar theme that we're expecting from the hero's journey. Because when Rahu is in the 12th, we would be thinking that this is indicating that the person should go towards spiritual liberation, towards moksha, towards meditation, contemplation, towards transcending the everyday world, letting go of their responsibilities, the life that they've known so far, and releasing their attachments to material things. Very spiritual sounding house or direction. And Ketu then would be in Virgo or in the 6th sign, and that would lead us to say it's time to let go of your attachment to working on matter, to trying to perfect matter, time to let go of your possessions, of that mundane life, of the real world, and realize that there is more to life than matter, and also time to let go of all of those struggles and the hardships of life. It's just not your path. The path is to open up to this bigger world of, as indicated by Rahu's placement. So you can see how this, nicely marries up with our hero journey. Well, if looking at Rahu in 12, Ketu in 6 was natural, this is the opposite. Let's look at when the placement is the other way around. When Rahu is in the 6th sign, the 6th house, which is the hardworking house, and Ketu is in the 12th house, the moksha house, or when Rahu's in Virgo, which is that earth sign, and Pisces is in the water sign. What happens now to how these different motivators interact with each other's story? So when we see Rahu in the 6th house or in Virgo, we're thinking with Rahu, go towards routine and mundane life. Go towards your responsibilities. Face your struggles head on in a realistic way. And get your hands dirty, put your feet in the clay and live in the real world. And Ketu, we're saying when we see Ketu there in that 12th house or 12th sign, when it's time to let go of running away. It's time to let go of thinking that spiritual practices are going to solve your real world problems, and that you could go to a retreat somewhere and get away from your responsibilities. So when Ketu's in the 12th house, really we're saying that you can't spiritualize to hide yourself away from the real world. And this then is quite different from the hero's journey. It's like we're flipping it the other way around. And this is when we start to see our spiritual cliches not quite fitting anymore. So for example here, some of the cliches that don't work if you're applying the Rahu and Ketu model is to say to someone that karmic evolution is always served by meditation retreats and letting go of responsibilities. That's a thing that we can almost thoughtlessly say to someone. We're assuming that we're going in that clockwise direction, but with Rahu and Ketu going the other way, for some people their karmic evolution is served by the exact opposite. And another cliche to avoid would be that karmic evolution is always in the direction of moksha. And isn't that interesting? Because we are lulled into this clockwise sense of direction. It can seem obvious that moksha is the goal, whereas Rahu and Ketu are really challenging us to be much more thoughtful in understanding what our mission is and what the journey that we're really on. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. So what are the goals of Rahu and Ketu? If we're so clear what the hero's journey is about, taking the mundane world and the material world, going through a transformative experience and realizing the magic that's behind all matter, and returning to our everyday life, but with this enormous vision of interconnectedness. we're pretty clear that that's what the story is when we're looking at the hero's journey. But what are the goals of Rahu and Ketu? What are they trying to bring into people's experience? And of course, we know the classic story that Rahu and Ketu are the demon that has been separated, that Rahu is the mouth of the demon that can't be satisfied, and that Ketu is the tail and the body, but with no senses. It can't take from the material world any sensory input. It's just got nowhere to receive that. But also, Ketu, it's a flag, right? It marks the territory that we've already conquered, and this is where it begins to write its own story in our zodiac, that Ketu is showing the territory that we have claimed, that we have conquered, that we've perfected in, going with the theory of the story, in past lives, that we've built up an expertise in that area, and there's no more satisfaction and for us to keep going in that same direction, to keep perfecting that expertise, but also that our karmic evolution is not served by becoming more of an expert in that area where we're getting out of balance. And now it's time to head towards Rahu, that insatiable desire, but that newness. And the way that Rahu and Ketu are set out on the zodiac, they're always opposite each other. They're always 180 degrees away from each other. So Rahu is always pointing to exactly the other side of where we have this expertise, and causing us to put our attention into an area of our life that we haven't explored before, that we have no skills in, that we have no existing knowledge in, and that all of the expertise and status that we may have from one area of our life means nothing in this new field. However, what it is saying is that from a karmic evolutionary point of view, that is where our direction needs to be. We need that balance. We need to go gain skills in this other area in order to enrich and balance and progress our karmic evolution. And perhaps this is where Rahu and Ketu are fundamentally different from the hero journey, that the hero journey is by definition a one lifetime story. And Rahu and Ketu, by the way that we use them, that they've been passed down to us, they're this karmic evolutionary journey. So they're not actually interested in this one lifetime. That's a time scale that's just too small for the goals of Rahu and Ketu. They are interested in a journey that is so much bigger and that we can't really conceptualize because we just get snippets of it each birth. We just get a little window into what that journey is, but we don't have the capacity to know consciously those journeys of lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, and why therefore Ketu is there and Rahu is on the other side. So perhaps the biggest thing that is different is the time scale, the one lifetime versus the many lifetimes. And I don't know whether perhaps that's why they're heading in the other direction, which is the other main difference, the transiting clockwise and anti-clockwise. So now we've explored a little bit about what we think the karmic message of Rahu and Ketu is, what we're taught, and as astrologers, what we help our clients to focus on their Rahu and Ketu direction. Let's see how that works out in some other house combinations. So let's work our way around the zodiac now. What happens if we have Rahu in 1 and Ketu in 7? Here we're talking about having Rahu in the first house, a Dharma house, and Ketu in the 7th house, a Karma house, or having Rahu in Aries, the fire sign, and having Ketu in Libra, the air sign. So when we get Rahu there in that 1, the numerology of 1, we are thinking that we want to head towards the body, towards strengthening my life and my identity, to being with loneliness rather than avoiding it, and to taking on things single-handedly. There's quite the solo path. And in K2, our area of expertise, therefore we want to let go of compromising with others, of identifying with our partners, maybe letting go of relationships, and in some ways letting go of being pragmatic. And you can see already that this again messes with our spiritual platitudes, because here the spiritual cliche to avoid is there's no I in team. So again, one of those mindless pre-programmed ideas that we have about development is that it's always about working with others, that's the more evolved path. And Rahu and Ketu here are saying actually for some people the evolutionary path is to put themselves first and is to find out who they are and to pursue things from their perspective. That is how their karmic evolution is served. So this is a note for us to stay awake to the real individual person that we are working with, not to give these spiritual cliches. Let's look now at Rahu in 2 and Ketu in 8. This is looking at the access of resources, so external resources that we gather ourselves, that we're responsible for, or inner resourcefulness and resources that we get from others. And that would be if Rahu is in the 2nd house, an Artha house, and Ketu is in the 8th house, a Moksha house, or if Taurus is in, Rahu is in Taurus, the earth sign, and Ketu is in Scorpio, the water sign. So that placement would lead us to be thinking, go towards Rahu, go towards valuing the self, taking on responsibilities, taking on work personally, that you do yourself, accumulate your own material possessions, and be grounded. It's an earth sign. And Ketu, to walk away from, to release relying on others financially or relying on the family for validation. Also, with that placement, we know that there's an expertise in that inner resourcefulness, and there's a comfort zone in the cave there of Scorpio. This placement is asking the person to gather their own resources, to come out of the cave and get things, make things. So spiritual cliches to avoid here are that karmic evolution is always served by letting go of responsibilities. And that echoes some of that hero journey platitudes that we can get lulled into. And also with the second dot point, that karmic evolution is always served in the direction of moksha. Here, Rahu is actually saying that for karmic evolution, for balance, we need to go into this earth sign, gather material resources, and be responsible for our own resources. All right, what about if we have Rahu in 3 and Ketu in 9? And that would mean Rahu, for example, in the 3rd house, a karma house, desires house, or Ketu in the 9th house, which is a dharmic house. This is putting the spectrum, the access for Rahu and Ketu on that learning access of the number 3 being more about trial and error and adventure. learning through experience, and the number 9 being more about wisdom from books or from gurus or from those who've come before, or even from faith. So that's the axis that we're playing with. And it could also be if Rahu was in Gemini, the air sign, and Ketu was in Sagittarius, the fire sign. So if we saw that placement, we would be thinking that Rahu is encouraging us towards trial and error, towards learning through experience, and towards gaining skills, practical skills with our hands. And Ketu is saying to us it's time to let go of this very stable, big belief system that we may have inherited from a body of knowledge, from a faith or from a religion. And it's time to let go of meaning from books. We need to actually go and test this stuff in the real world. And some of the cliches that that brings to mind is that you always need a guru. You know, that we might have been, lulled into that sense that that is the spiritual path of following a teacher, of following a known, already charted course spiritually. And actually what Rahu is saying by being in the 3rd or by being in Gemini is we have to find it ourselves. There's no formula. It is, the truth is out there for you when you experiment with it. Let's have a look now at Rahu in 4 and Ketu in 10. This is playing with the axis of home, the 4th house, and 10, that activity that we do in the outside world. So that's the kind of two ends of the polarity, the in the house and out of the house, you know, inside our physical house that we live in, and outside the house in the physical world of activity. And this would be if you've got Rahu in the 4th house, a moksha house, and Ketu in the 10th house, a hardworking Arthur house, or if you've got Rahu in Cancer, the water sign, and Ketu in Capricorn, the earth sign. And that would lead us to think the direction is Rahu needs to go towards the experience of emotions, the unpredictability of emotional pain, and allowing chaos inside our emotional world, just allowing our emotions to be what they are and to explore that world, to find our home and our comfort in that reality of the unpredictability of emotions and the very visceral or somatic experience of emotions. And Ketu is telling us to let go of external security and of controlling the external world in a way that prevents emotions, or at least controls emotions and tries to put them in some kind of ordered or logical or constrained place. So we need to let go of controlling our emotions, and also letting go of our status of external security. We want to find that security in our inner emotional space. So letting go of success as a way of dealing with emotions or not dealing with emotions. And in some ways also there's a bit of letting go of being an expert, knowing what's best and causing conflicts with authority figures. You know, it's time for us to step out of that expertise and go into developing skills in this emotional area where we're currently underdeveloped. So what are the spiritual cliches we need to avoid? that work brings freedom, or that success brings happiness, and that, you know, don't feel, like just do it. Because all of those action things of the 10th house or of Capricorn, they skew us towards thinking that for all people, applying yourself and having that success in the external world, that will create happiness or will create spiritual satisfaction. And really here we're saying the opposite, that maybe this person's karmic path is to not be as recognized in the external world and to live in the chaos of their emotions. That might actually be what serves their evolution best. Now let's look at Rahu in 5 and Ketu in 11. And this is playing with that axis of the king creating his own kingdom in the 5th versus the large social networks, the organizations of the 11th. So it's about kind of striking out on your own versus being part of the community. And where is our evolution served along that continuum? And that would be if Rahu is in the 5th house, which is a dharmic house, and Ketu is in the 11th house, a house of desire, a karmic house, or if Rahu is in Leo, the fire sign, and Ketu is in Aquarius, the air sign. And that would lead us to be looking for the Rahu direction of following one's own inspiration. And expressing your own truth, even if it causes social isolation, and allowing differences of opinions. So definitely can feel that Leo energy there of, taking your own path, because we're saying that Ketu, the territory that we've already conquered, therefore we need to let go of in this lifetime, are these groups and the social recognition, the being part of a large group, and all of the expertise that we have there of belonging, fitting in, being part of an organization, and the accommodation that we have of other people's views, of these multi-views that you get in an organization. Ketu is showing us it's time to let go of that. And follow our independence, follow our intuition, follow our inspiration. And so the spiritual cliche that we want to avoid reflects a little one that we've already heard, which is, there's no I in team. So we might mindlessly say to someone that it's always best to collaborate, to compromise, to achieve things with others, that's the more evolved path. And Rahu in the 5th, or Rahu in Leo, is showing us that actually our karmic evolution is served by following our inspiration. So this does echo some of those themes from the 1-7 placement of Rahu Ketu that we explored just a little earlier, that when we have that Rahu in a dharmic house, that has got the energy that's pushing us towards following our own inspiration. And now let's look at Rahu in the 7th and Ketu in the 1st. And this is playing with that axis of the self versus others, and which one is going to bring about our karmic evolutions, unique for every chart. So it would be a chart where we've got Rahu in the 7th house, a karma house, desires house, and Ketu in the 1st house, which is the dharmic house. Or we've got Rahu in Libra, an air sign, and Ketu in Aries, the fire sign. So this placement would lead us to think that the Rahu direction is to go towards being spontaneous and open in partnerships, to effortlessly being oneself with others, to creating connections, and to seeing what a small part I play in the world. It's putting me in that context of others. Because Ketu is showing that we already have the strengths around analyzing everyone and having a detached point of view. It would also indicate a controlling nature towards the self and predisposition to take responsibility for everything. So this placement of Rahu in the 7th is looking to loosen up our relationship with others, and therefore we will loosen up in the self, have a more balanced awareness of the self and others. So the spiritual cliche to avoid is that you can never have too much self-awareness, right? So many spiritual paths would be promoting that self-awareness is the key to everything, and certainly there are times when you may want to say to someone else in your life that they need more self-awareness. I'm sure we've all had that experience. But this placement of Rahu and Ketu is actually showing that karmic evolution is not going to be served in this particular case anymore by self-awareness. This is now time to relax into the experience of being with others. And that might be extremely spiritually challenging too. Okay. Now, let's have a look at Rahu in 8 and Ketu in 2. This is playing with that axis around resources again. The balance between taking responsibility for your own resources and gaining resources from others, or the balance between the resources that are external and the resources that are internal. And this combination occurs if you have Rahu in the 8th house and if you have Ketu in the 2nd house, or if you have Rahu in Scorpio, the water sign, and Ketu in Taurus, the earth sign. If we saw that placement, we're going to be thinking that Rahu needs to go towards asking for help and using other people's resources. This involves trust. So there's a real vulnerability to this placement. It's about fair partnerships and this feeling the deep needs that cannot be met by the material experience. And it may be about teaching rather than doing. And that is because Ketu there in the 2nd house or in Taurus has an expertise in being self-reliant and an expertise in material things and material security. So in order for us to grow, if that's where our expertise is, we're already good at looking after ourselves, gathering resources, creating material security, and doing things for ourselves. Therefore, Rahu is inviting us to feel vulnerable, to need others, and to empower others through teaching them to do it rather than stepping in and doing things for people because we're an expert. So the spiritual cliches to avoid here are that every man is an island. And, that can be a cliche that we think is true, that one should be self-reliant and self-sufficient. And this placement is contradicting that. What about this one? That you don't have needs, or you shouldn't be needy. That's a spiritual person shouldn't have needs. And this placement is actually showing that your karmic evolution will be better served by you being vulnerable and having needs than you being self-sufficient. So again, it's a wake-up call for all of us when we are looking at people's journeys, that we cannot assume that we know the direction that their own evolution is going in. And it might be quite the contrary to some of these platitudes that we have. So let's look now at Rahu in 9 and Ketu in 3. This is when you've got Rahu in the ninth house and Ketu in the third house. So we're playing with that axis of experimentation versus faith, and science or proving things versus a body of knowledge, an existing religion, a set of theology. And it could be if you had Sagittarius, Rahu in Sagittarius and Ketu in Gemini. And that would be leading us to say, if Rahu is in that placement, you need to follow your inspiration to faith. You need to maybe surrender yourself to a guru or a teacher, that knowledge, that body of knowledge is where you need to go. And perhaps even surrendering your willpower and operating from this sense of purpose, what is meaningful. And therefore Ketu is also telling us that we need to let go of knowing everything, being able to prove everything, and only believing things if they're provable and experimentable. So here our cliches to avoid are you should listen to science, or if you can't prove it, you shouldn't believe it. And I guess the cliche really to avoid is to be talking someone out of their inspiration. So we need to be alert and awake to this unique placement. And if we have Rahu in 10 and Ketu in 4, then we're playing with the axis of in the house, in our own home, or out of the house in the world of activity. And that would be when Rahu's in the 10th house, which is an Artha house, and Ketu's in the 4th house, a Moksha house, or when Rahu is in the 10th, is in Capricorn, the 10th sign, and Ketu is in Cancer, a water sign. And that would lead us to think that Rahu is saying go towards engaging with external chaos, go towards fears in the real world, go towards activity in the outside world, and status, and being on that path of work and effort, and let go of retreating to an inner sanctuary of safety, of emotions, of that world of the home and comfort. So really Rahu asking us to be out there in the action. And a very interesting spiritual cliche from this placement is listen to your inner voice. And how often would we hear that as a platitude, that that is a universal truth? But in this placement, what it's really saying is this person has that expertise of their inner soft world of comfort and emotions. This person's evolution is going to be served by getting out there and being in the cut and thrust of the action, even when that perhaps drowns out their inner voice, that for the sense of balance that Rahu and Ketu are trying to create, this person needs the just do it platitude that we were previously saying, doesn't apply to a different case. And that's what Rahu and Ketu are really bringing to the richness of the chart is, for some people, just do it is the platitude that actually applies. And for other people, listen to your inner voice is the platitude that applies. But we need to be open, awake and aware that every person is different, and not to give these platitudes without looking at the chart, without knowing what that person's unique path is. And one last one, Rahu in 11 and Ketu in 5. This is once again playing with the axis of striking your own path versus being part of a large organization. So leading versus fitting in, or a leadership of peers. And that would be if Rahu is in the 11th house, a house of desires, and Ketu is in the 5th house, a dharmic house, or Rahu is in Aquarius, which is an air sign, and Ketu is in Leo, which is a fire sign. That would lead us to think that Rahu is saying go towards having these experiences in groups and go towards being similar with others, blending in, being, part of an organization of peers, because you already have expertise in striking out on your own. So we need to let go of that facade of nobleness that separates. Sometimes being a leader, we can think that we have to, in a way, be above and beyond those people that we're leading. We perhaps have to make sacrifices of our own, something about our own self in order to lead these people. And Ketu is saying it's time to drop that nobleness and blend and mix with the group, and maybe let go of being out the front and being a leader. So here we want to avoid some spiritual cliches like, when I grow old, I will wear purple, which means that we can have a kind of unconscious programming that we think spiritual development or, maturity or whatever that path is, means that we will, be ourselves and we'll stand out because we've gone through the journey of maturity in our lifetime. And that being true to yourself means standing out. Whereas this placement is, asking a very deep and profound thing when you've got Ketu there in the 5th, Rahu in the 11th, that one's karmic evolution is going to be served by being equal to the group, and all the spiritual development that is going to bring for the person to let go of their leadership and standing out. So now we've been around the whole zodiac, and we've been looking at how Rahu and Ketu mess with the hero's journey. And I began to see some patterns there, and I want to spend the next part of the video just looking at that and seeing whether you're seeing what I'm seeing. And to do that, I want to grab a catchphrase for each Rahu placement. So bear with me. They're not perfect, but they give us a way to anchor each placement in our mind. So first of all, if Rahu's in the 12th, we can think that the catchphrase might be that the hero should release matter, move through matter to transcend. If it's in the 11th, the hero should blend with their community, with their organizations, be one of rather than be out the front. If it's in the 10th, the hero should engage in action, so moving away from that emotional safety inner world into that outside world of doing. The 9th, the hero should surrender to the guru. That's that placement about faith. The 8th house, this is that moksha house around releasing needs, moving through one's needs, like really experiencing that vulnerability to transcend it. The 7th, the hero should belong to others, to feel that flow between the self and others. 6th, the hero should toil in the real material world. 5th, the hero should go out on his own, be an expert, say his own opinion. The 4th, the hero should move through their emotions, not being afraid of them, not controlling them, allowing them to be and therefore transcend them. 3rd, the hero should experiment. When it's in the 2nd, the hero should accumulate material experience. And in the 1st, the hero should think of himself. So obviously it's hard to encapsulate the entire subtlety of Rahu and Ketu into a 5 or 6 word phrase. But let's use these as our catchphrases. And why this is important is because we can see already the nuances that Rahu and Ketu bring to the hero journey. If you remember way back in the early part of the video, we were talking about mapping the 12 steps of Vogler's Hollywood hero journey onto the 12 numbers of the numerology of the of the zodiac, and we were talking about how nicely some of them matched up. And of course, what matched up really well is the 12th, the final step, the hero releasing matter, transcending. That's kind of what the hero journey quest is all about, that the illusion of matter, the illusion of responsibility, the illusion of being an expert, all of that is broken, and the person goes through this ordeal and transcends their understanding and realizes or experiences the magic that is beyond the material world. So that's the hero journey is kind of saying everybody should go in that direction. But the other thing from that slide was that at the very beginning, the first step on the Hollywood chart was, setting the scene. But then after that, there was the call to action. And I was saying when I was mapping the zodiac numerology to the Hollywood 12 steps that for me, 1, 2, and 3 all had that element of the call to action. We've got to have a hero. They've got to accumulate their stuff for the journey. They've got to experiment and gain some confidence before they can take on this quest. So all 3 of those, no matter what your starting point in 1, 2, or 3 is, the answer is to transcend and release matter. That's the monomyth of the hero journey, is that wherever you start, that is the ending. But Rahu and Ketu give us a lot of subtlety with each person's journey. And so let's look at these now, these catchphrases of Rahu, through the 4 purposes. So if we put all of our Dharma houses together, we get the hero should think of himself, the hero should go out on his own, and the hero should surrender to a guru. If we look at the Artha houses, the hero should accumulate, the hero should toil, and the hero should engage in action. Looking at our Karma houses, the hero should experiment, the hero should belong, the hero should blend, and the Moksha houses, the hero should release emotions, the hero should release needs, and the hero should release matter. Okay, so now we're looking at them through the 4 purposes. And what if we group those together? Now we've got all of our Dharma houses together here, and we could say that there's a theme that the hero is inspired. Sometimes it's to follow a path, or his path, or to follow the guru and surrender to that. Then if we look at all of our Artha houses, we could say that the hero is obliged to work, to be responsible, and to perform service. If we look at all of our Kama houses, there's a real common experience of becoming one with something about the material experience, our skills, becoming one with the world through our skills, through relationships, or through community. And if we look at the Moksha houses, there's a theme of transcending, that all of these strong experiences of these somatic emotions or needs or the illusion of the material world, we see through that through experience and we transcend. And now if we put those together, we've got our 4 purposes there. And what we notice from the going through the zodiac with Rahu and Ketu is that with the 180-degree placement of Rahu and Ketu, they are either on the axis of the Dharma and Karma houses, or they're on the axis of the Artha and the Moksha houses. So that was the pattern that I was beginning to see when we were looking at our spiritual platitudes. And to just bring those together, I think we can sort of zoom up and say that if someone has their Rahu in an inspirational dharmic house or sign, we have to be careful about giving any platitudes around the you should compromise, that it's better to be in a team, that the group should solve the problem together, that we need to listen to everything, this is a democracy. Any of those kind of platitudes do not support the placement of Rahu in those houses. So we're getting that real subtlety of the hero journey. However, if the placement of Rahu is in a karma house, though the goals there are around blending with experience, to that the human being is having this very open exchange with others, with skills, with the community, then we have to be careful about platitudes about you should lead from the front and don't listen to anyone's advice and go out on your own. Those platitudes are not going to apply to that placement of Rahu. And it's the same on the other axis over here. If somebody has the Rahu placed in an Arthur house or sign, then we need to be careful about platitudes around transcending, that you should let go of your material responsibilities, you should let go of work and be free. Those kind of platitudes don't apply to that Rahu placement, and they're not serving that person's karmic evolution. Leaving us with finally this the moksha signs or houses that are naturally more indicated for the hero journey, and therefore those are where the platitudes come from. But we need to be careful with those people to not give spiritual cliches around one should be materially successful, that you should work or you should have status or you should get stuff, that's where success comes from. So here we are, a summary of how Rahu and Ketu are giving nuance to everyone's spiritual journey. And to wrap up our presentation, let's return back to the images that we had earlier in the slideshow about the hero's journey and then Rahu and Ketu and how they map onto the zodiac. And I hope that you have enjoyed looking at the hero's journey and how it matches up with the zodiac, with that numerology path that's in the numbers of the zodiac, and then how Rahu and Ketu, being the only objects in the sky that transit anti-clockwise or in the opposite direction to the planets, and in this case the opposite direction to the hero journey story, how they mess with that idea that we have of an arc of a story that goes in one direction, because they go in the other way. And it's a little bit like when you, as a kid, were playing with the water and you turn the water all the way around in one direction, you get a really good momentum or inertia going with the water, and then you hold the paddle the other way and you feel the turbulence that comes from heading in the opposite direction against that flow that you've established. And this is a little bit what Rahu and Ketu bring to our lives, is that turbulence that churns up the direction that perhaps we feel that the life should have been going. But in that action, that turbulent action, they're creating the detoxifying, that chance to clear that karma and rebalance our development. And that this means that everybody's journey is unique, that there are no one-size-fits-all spiritual paths, and that for some people what is best for their karmic evolution is going to be quite different to another person. And although we are all heroes, we are on our unique journeys that have unique missions for us. So as astrologers, it's good to be awake to people's spiritual path and to give them the indications that are tailored to their own chart. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and I look forward to your feedback and reflections on these thoughts. Thanks for watching.